Well, get this. Right now, New York City mayor candidate Zohran Mamdani, he's holding an event in Queens, and this as a phone call that he had is getting a lot of attention in his race for mayor. So New York Times' Mara Gay reporting that some Democrats panicked over Mamdani, but Obama called him. And then Mamdani yesterday opening up about that call with the former president. Watch.
That call happened soon after the primary. It was a call that I was honored to receive. And the contents of it were focused on the campaign that we ran, the importance of hope in our politics, and the ways in which we govern to deliver on that. And the lessons of that conversations are ones that I hold close to me as we continue to build this campaign to win the general election.
Let's bring in New York Post contributor Douglas Murray. This is getting a lot of attention, and for a lot of reasons. Sometimes a phone call is just a phone call, but there is symbolism here, and you have the Democratic Party being pulled to the left over and over again. Obama had somewhat tried resisting that a little bit, but this phone call sort of feels like an endorsement. How do you see it?
Yes, it does feel very much like that. At the very least, he was obviously giving Mamdani some kind of advice. And this is the great problem for the Democratic Party in relation to this Democratic Socialist candidate, which is whether or not he pollutes the rest of the Democratic Party with his own very radical politics, or whether or not they can express some basic sort of political hygiene in keeping him out of the mainstream of the Democratic Party. We're still waiting on a number of prominent Democrats, not least in New York State, senators as well as others, to say exactly where they stand on the Democratic nominee. But yes, I mean, he is somebody who's so manifestly unfit for office in every way. I mean, starting from his just total lack of experience. And secondly, of course, his extremely radical politics. And the Democratic Party has to make a choice on this.
Well, Al Sharpton, believe it or not, Douglas, he agrees with us. He said this yesterday, that the call gives the sense that President Obama and his world is comfortable with his candidacy. It normalizes him. It helps with the perception of some people that Mamdani is too radical. It sends a message that he is not unacceptable. Time magazine also put him on the cover, sharp-dressed guy on the cover. And it's one thing about the economic politics that he has and how radical that is. But the other that I think is not getting enough attention is, the questions of anti-Semitism when it comes to his candidacy, or at least, remember, globalize the Intifada, a phrase that he decided not to use after he won the primary.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy so radical that he can't condemn terrorism. He can't condemn calls for terrorism. That's absolutely astonishing for somebody who wants to run as mayor of a city that has, of course, experienced terrorism. It's not a game, this kind of stuff, of whether or not you should call for a global campaign of terrorism. It's not something that most Democrats historically would find difficult, that question. It's not something that any mainstream politician would find difficult in America. Should we condemn terrorism or not? And here he is sort of saying, well, I might not use that phrase in the future. I might not call for armed terrorism against civilians in the future. I mean, among the many astonishing things, by the way, of course, is the extent to which the polls show the number of Jewish New Yorkers who seem to be willing to vote for Mamdani. Yeah. I mean, this isn't just an issue for them, but I mean, obviously, there's something crazy in that. But the wider question, yes, is this thing of whether or not Americans, voters in New York, are going to legitimize an incredibly fringe and unqualified figure to become mayor of the city. I mean, there are other options. And the idea of just voting for something bright and shiny and new, irrespective of his politics, would be a catastrophe for New York City.
And as I've been saying, it may start in New York City, but it won't end there. Douglas Murray, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.